Ciao, loves. Welcome to Drawing Down the Stars. Today's episode is Celestial Timing and How to Return to the Connection Between the Cosmos to Life on Earth. I'm your host, Gemma, and today let's journey through a time when our calendars weren't just lines on a grid, but they were living narratives written and dictated by the night sky. We'll be talking about a topic near and dear to my heart, of course, the synodic month and the lunar solar calendar. These systems were profound calendation systems that were used across eras, lineages, civilizations, and even religions. They are the key to our forgotten connection between the moon phases, the shifting stars, and how life animates on Earth. For thousands of years, humanity didn't know just time. We didn't tell it in a methodical, mechanical method. It was a living, breathing entity that we danced with. It was a beat that was set by two of the great luminaries, the sun and the moon. But along the way, we have lost that rhythm. We've lost the beat and we've lost the connection to between how the sun and the moon against the stars influences our life on earth, consciousness, and all living beings. So this is not just uh, a conversation or a podcast on the ancient system and understanding the rhythms and how it all works and how to apply it, but more so it's a call. It's a call to return back to this wise system that unified cultures, that unified religions, that unified civilizations and eras, that unified the cosmos to Earth. So, in essence, I suppose it is a call to return back to the synchronicity of the stars into Earth. So let's start. Let's start with the foundation, the synodic month. The synodic month is simple and profound. And the month isn't just an arbitrary number of days. The synodic month is determined by a complete lunar phase. So new moon to new moon, or from 29.5 days. This was what dictated the month in the ancient system. It was the foundation of the lunar solar calendar. One lunar cycle dictated 1 month. That's where we get the word month from, is the moon. The moon is the namesake of month. The Greeks called her Mene, the monthly version of the goddess of the moon, Selene. The Latins called it mensis, where we derive mens and menstruation from. But a lunar ordering dictates the length of the month. And here, in our current system, the moon occurs in a vacuum on a phase just in the middle of the month, like a new moon on the 20th and a full moon on the 1st, completely disassociated with the qualities of the moon and what it actually signifies. So in the ancient world, the month and the moon wasn't just about the moon reflecting the sunlight. It was a cycle, it was a theme, and those themes were determined by the backdrop of the fixed stars, the lunar mansions, the constellations within the zodiac. The stars gave the moon the theme that would unfold, and the sun would unfold it and give that theme life. But right now, we attune to a more modern calculation that is erroneous, completely erroneous. And not erroneous in its calculation, but erroneous in its association to the moon. A sidereal month, or what I like to call NASA math. A sidereal month marks the point of when the moon will come back to the same position against the stars. That takes 27.3 days. So sidereal means of the stars in Greek, and it simply measures the moon against the position of the star in its orbit. Now, how did we get 28 from this? And I'll do a separate podcast, but really quick, we added 28 and called it a lunar cycle. And so even our 28-day association to the moon is, I hate to say it because I was attuned to it too, is wrong. The sidereal month is 27.32 days. Now remember, the lunar synodic month is 29.5 days. Now, why is this so important? Well, because if we tune the moon on 27.32 days, it's 2.2 days behind the sun and the earth. So if the moon takes 27.32 days to return to the same star within the zodiac in the fixed position, well, the sun and earth have already progressed 2.2 days. So the sidereal month cuts off a lunar phase. And if you add that up over years, over months, it displaces the moon from its namesake, from the month that it governs. And we don't use the moon against that star. We use the moon in conjunction with the sun against the stars. So the first severance begins from NASA calling it a sidereal month and a roundup to 28 when a lunar month and a lunar cycle is 29.5 days. Now that the synodic month is the foundation, that means every new moon will begin a new month. This is so important because it democratizes how we tell time. That means you don't need to know astronomy. You can look up in the sky and see a full moon and know you're midway through the month. You can see from a new moon 3 days of waxing and know that you're onto the third day. The moon signified through its phases how far along we were in the month and what quality was coming into consciousness. It was a brilliant system that we made overcomplicated and disassociative. So how do we synchronize the moon with the sun? Because they are two different paths. They have two different paces. That's where we have the lunar solar calendar. And before I tell you how those two come together into synchronization, I think it's important that we just discuss what these two are responsible for. So the sun, commonly associated with masculine, is a positive force, an activating, vivifying. It brings life onto earth. We see plants crane their heads to shine and lift to the stars. We see chlorophyll. We see all of these processes happen and enliven through the sun. The moon is the nurturer, the mother, nurturance. She activates fertility. She activates the cycle of which the sun will bring life into. So she becomes impregnated to bring the qualities and characteristics through consciousness. And so their unification are important because, yes, we can just go by a solar year, which is our modern calendar, completely divorces the moon, or we can go by just a lunar system, which is looking solely at the effects of the moon and how things come into life, but we will disassociate from the consciousness that is interplaying behind it and with it. So, as the ancients saw it, it was best to merge these calendars together in what we call a lunisolar calendar. A lunisolar calendar was predominant across most civilizations. They didn't operate off of one, but both. But here's a caveat, just a little. They kept them separate. So it was common to have a 10-month calendar that was for commerce, government, civic things. And the moon separate calendar, the lunar system, was for ritual, was for spiritual, was for attunement. And they operated on two separate calendars. Now, they did start to merge them together. The Norse had merged their calendars together, and the Greeks had merged their calendars together, the Romans, and then the Egyptians. And we have this merger of lunisolar calendars, also the Babylonians. And that was so we could actually have both of these qualities that were sacred to these luminaries in our life, that we can bring them together and plan not only the seasons, what we animate, but also our activities. So we took our civic, our commercial, our ritual, and we brought it all into one. Here we have the birth of the lunar solar calendar. This is ideally what we should be functioning off of. The moon dictates the month, the sun dictates the year. As the sun governs a true celestial season, and we know this as solstices and equinoxes, the longest day and the longest night and the equal amount of time, We also understand that the moon, or the sun, excuse me, will dictate everything from planting and harvest, but also animal migrations. Versus the lunar calendar, like the Islamic Hijri, which is solely just lunar, will focus a little bit more on those lunar aspects. But a solely lunar calendar will drift through the seasons. So that's another important aspect of a lunisolar calendar, is it anchors the moon into the seasons. And a lunisolar calendar, because the sun and the moon, again, are at different paces, how do you unify them? It's like one is going 60 miles an hour and the other is going 40. Well, one is always going to be ahead. So how does the 40-mile-an-hour moon catch up with the 60-mile-an-hour sun? Through an extra month. This is what you know as intercalation, or the 13th lunar month. And many of you might have already heard of the 13 lunar months. It is not every year that we have 13 lunar months, but every third year that we have a 13th lunar month. And that 13th lunar month was placed so that 40-mile-an-hour moon could catch up with that 60-mile-an-hour sun. So they could be unified in the moon in the months and the sun in the year. The Egyptians called the 13th month a Thoth year, and the great wise Babylonians understood that when the moon rose in January, the new moon, against specific fixed stars, then it would be an extra month year. The extra month year, the 13th month year, was not the same as a 12-month year. Across the lands, they thought that this was a special month, hence the Egyptians naming it a Thoth month. It wasn't a complete 29 days. It was a truncated month. It was shorter, but it was a special month with its own qualities. And so here, the 13th month is an act of unifying the sun with the moon. And so we would have the solar seasons and the celestial impact of the equinox and the solstice anchor down these four celestial events, anchor down the phases of the moon into the year. So we could tie the new moon and the full moon to agriculture, to seasons, to themes. It allowed us to take our themes with ritual and seasons and merge them together. It was where the stars and the sun and the soil came to survive. This is how we could understand all of the celestial influences to life on Earth. We could understand the characteristics and the qualities of consciousness to life on Earth. So the moon, as it rules the water, its gravitational pull lifts the tides and raises the groundwater in our very earth. It also signals to coral to procreate. It is a signaling of fertility. The moon in this position with the sun against the stars was a direct correlation to those effects into the earth's biosphere, a direct effect into consciousness to all beings, whether it be coral in the sea, worms in the sea, turtles that go to lay their eggs, the geese that fly, any migratory pattern. This moon against the position of the stars would unfold a theme and a quality and a characteristic. It would have an eminence that life would tune into, a unique rhythm, a unique frequency that life would understand. And so again, this is about returning into that attunement. We understand this in the biodynamic farming. For those of you that don't know, that is utilizing the moon and the position against the stars with specific phases to dictate specific agricultural acts. Now, I practice biodynamic farming. It's part of what I also want to continue to teach is this, but when we understand and utilize the synodic month or the lunar dictated month with a lunar solar calendar, we will reorientate ourselves to the celestial seasons and we'll understand specific qualities and characteristics that are unto the moon. By not having this correlation by the moon and the sun and the stars, it's hard to actually tune into life around you, and it's hard to notice the patterns because we are on a soulless system, to be quite honest. Our cosmic clock is no longer integrated, and we are no longer receiving stellar signals through heliacal rises and lunar phases. So, how do we return back and how do we understand the calendar? And I want to tell you how to approach that. But let's go, now that you're well aware of the lunar solar calendar and what a synodic lunar month is and how that created such an important system. How do we get displaced? Why did we leave such a brilliant and simplistic system? Well, unfortunately, Julius Caesar wanted to do it. So, Julius Caesar in 45 BCE wanted to unite the calendars across the Roman Empire, and he made it completely solar. And that's where we have a 365-day solar year. So, this point, Julius Caesar now has segregated us from the lunar system altogether. It is a complete severance from the moon dictating the days of the month. And when he did this, he arbitrarily assigned numbers to the months. He knew that there was 365 days in the year and he had to intercalate. So he added a leap day every 4 years, but he was still off in his math. And so was his astronomer, Sosgenes. So these months had arbitrary days, 31, 28, 30 versus 29.5. And the lunar phases no longer fit into the months. They were just, the word month became an administrative term and not its root connection to the moon. But when Julius Caesar created the Julian calendar, there was a major flaw because the solar calendar is 365.2422 days, not 365.25 days. The calculation was off. And that small 11-minute difference every year added up. It added up very quickly because the Julian calendar was used again across the Roman Empire, but for 1600 years. And when it got into the 15th, 16th century, the whole calendar had shifted. It had shifted a full 10 days out of sync with seasons. The spring equinox was integral to calculating Easter. It was integral to calculating spring and setting the rhythm for the rest of the seasons. But they no longer aligned. Now, Easter had slipped into the beginning of March. And forget attuning this moon to it, forget attuning the celestial influence to it, that was all gone. Everything was broken, and it was breaking and compounding. So in 1582, Pope Gregory VIII created a new calendar. He wanted to fix Julius Caesar's system. He wanted to fix the math. So they created the Gregorian calendar, and he kept certain things like the leap year, one added every 4 years, versus Julia's system, which would add an additional leap year every 400 years. It was a mess. But the Gregorian calendar deleted 10 days and brought everything back into synchronization. So from a mathematical position, brilliant. From a spiritual celestial position, horrendous. Because now we have our second point of complete elimination of our connection to not only the sun's position, but the moon and the stars. And that's the calendar we use today. We use the Gregorian calendar. No part of today's calendar is tethered to the moon, the stars, or the sun. Those events occur on dates. It is a mechanical system where the beauty and the influence of our cosmos occurs in our mechanical dates, not our dates set by the luminaries of the sun and the moon against the stars. To Pope Gregory's, what he sought to do once Julius Caesar's calendar just kept getting amok and kept aggregating and getting worse and worse. What he did was basically unify ecclesiastical celebrations. So if you were Catholic, you knew exactly what day. There was no confusion in celebration. He unified the world, the globe, in a set date. He also disassociated many of us from the beauty of the influence of the cosmos. But there's another key thing to this year and these celestial impacts that I really want to bring into highlight of what Julius Caesar did and where we stand today. Not only are we disassociated, as I said, from celestial seasons, but have you ever thought to wonder, why do we celebrate a new year in the dead of winter? Why is New Year January 1st? We're in the middle of winter, when everything around us doesn't come alive until the spring, until March, the spring equinox. The Persian calendar still recognizes their new year and the spring equinox and the new moon. They've maintained connection to the ancient calendation system. Theirs has not been severed. We see it biblically, we see it religiously, we see it in everything, even to life on earth. Everything comes alive in the spring equinox. It's the return of the sun. So why are we celebrating the new year in January? Well, we can thank that one up for Caesar as well. Because the ancient calendation system split its months between numbering based off the lunar month as well as association to the gods. Now, when we say association to the gods, the key of this is the god represents the quality and the characteristics that would unfold during that lunar month. So January in the ancient lunar solar calendar system was called Inarius, and it was ruled by the god Janus. And so Caesar was like, yes, let's make January all about Janus and the new year. Well, Janus is a two-headed god, and maybe you've seen this figurine. It has one face facing left and another one facing right. Sometimes it's depicted as three heads, but it stands for passage of time, past and future. When it's three heads, it's past, present, and future. And Janus is also the god of portals, of passageways. We know ports, right, where boats come into water, the celestial waters. In Italian, we say portone, porta, right? We know that this is your doorway, your passageway. So Janus's representation, yes, can be something new, but it is the passage of past to future, the passage of energy flowing into life. If you are in Rome, please go visit the Temple of Janus. I've actually correlated this to the moon in a celestial rising, or what we call archaeoastronomy. But the Janus, the Temple of Janus, will look unto Portanalia, again, the indication of the port. And so Caesar said, all right, we're going to make Janus. He brings in the new year, which technically he does look to the future. But Janus also brings in the past and clearing the channels. So if we really want to tune into the celestial calendar, January is the 11th month in honor of Janus, who oversees the passage from the past to the future, the portals, the channels. And if you want to tune into this, January is not the month to set your resolution or to start something new, but to clear the path for something new to come forward. Clear your channels. Get clear on what doors you want to walk through. What doors do you want to open for you? What doors are you closing? And what passageways are you clearing? That is the 11th month. We do this as well agriculturally. We prepare the land. The earth begins to heat in the full moon of February. And we prepare irrigation. You prepare the land. You prepare to seed. We don't go end, beginning. Yes and no. But the 11th month is January. It is the passage. Another big thing that Caesar did to sever us from the correlation of the moon and the celestial timing is he changed August. August was known as Sextilis. It was the 6th lunar month, and it has a deep correlation to Isis. It has a deep correlation to the passage of and the rising of the Nile and of the Palladian star system as well. However, he renamed Sextilis, which was the 6th lunar month, you can see that direct correlation there, to Augustus, after Emperor Augustus, which we still have today as August, just like we have January for Janus, which was amalgamated from Inarius. But if we look at the rest of our naming of our months, they follow the lunations, the lunar system. So I'll take you through it really briefly before we dive into how to apply all of this. Januarinarius of Janus, the god of passage and portals, is the 11th month. The 12th month is honor of the Etruscan god Februa, who is god of the underworld. This is our death gate. The Romans also had celebration of the Luperci, or of the wolves. Wolves bring life and change ecosystems. So we see this attunement to the wolf and their vital essence to life on earth and the passage of a new season. And then we have Marzo. Marzo is in honor of Mars. Mars is the god that, yes, is the god of war, but also shifts life, blood, life force. March, Marzo, the first lunar month. The beautiful thing about this first lunar month is the new moon during March marks month 1. The spring equinox is in March, typically around the 20th to the 21st. But the full moon preceding the equinox is called Annapurna. And it was a beautiful celebration that literally signified the wheel or a passage of a new year. This is where we get the words annuals and perennials. If you are a gardener, you know this term, the new year, a cycle. And here, this is the full moon after the equinox, the beginning of that wheel cycle. From March, Marzo, we have Apriles, the second month. We have Maya, the goddess of earth, of abundance, May. Then we have June, Inuus, the 4th month. Then we have the 5th month, July, which was called Quintilis. Quintilis is the 5th. The 6th month, which we call August, was Sextilis. Now we shift from gods to numbers, from the 5th to the 6th. So July becomes the 5th month. The 6th month, August. And then we have September, where we have that name. Septem was the ancient name. Septem, if you are familiar with Latin or Italian or Spanish, sette, 7. Otto, 8, October. Nove, 9, November, the 9th month. Dieci, 10, Dicem, December, the 10th lunar month. So here are names of our months have still had a connection to their lunar significance. Now, this isn't, I've given you the Latin equivalent. The Babylonians named their months after gods. The Chaldeans named their months after gods, and so did the Egyptians. The naming system in Latin was predominant around the Greco-Roman. But where that is important is we still see the month is tethered to the moon and how we can return to that. Not off of how it is established today, but based off of its correlation to the skies and the heavens. So first, how do we apply it? Lunar visibility. New moon marks new month. Again, January will be month 11, February month 12, March, the new moon in March is month 1. Second, this is going to create a synchronicity that we've lost with ecosystems. Because the lunar solar calendar allowed humans to constantly cross-reference these luminary bodies, the sun and the moon with the earth, against the fixed stars. It was a practice of observational humility. It made us look into the skies to see how far we've come, instead of looking down at a calendar or a grid. Where the Gregorian calendar sits purely in math, the lunar solar calendar sits wholly in the heavens. Third, we've lost our sense of cosmic narrative, truly. I mean, the Greeks were astounding at this in their cosmology and tying it to myths. Also, the Vedic myths, if you're interested, the Puranas are amazing at this. But when months are lunar, there's a character tied to each month. There is a lightness, a darkness. There is a star field behind it. There is a destiny, a theme to unfold. The harvest moon was marked in an autumnal equinox. This harvest moon represented purpose. We also in Italy, we harvest and press our wine in accordance with specific fixed stars that are tied to the celebration called Vinalia. So all of these are still connected. We've just superimposed it on cold days instead of living with that rhythm within the stars. So by tuning into this lunar solar calendar, now we get to use the worm moon, the strawberry moon, the wolf moon, the harvest moon, and actually see what that is on Earth. See that consciousness manifest to life on Earth. Our modern calendar doesn't have that poetry. It's built by structure, whereas the lunar solar calendar has a fluidity, has a soul, has a heartbeat, has a rhythm. So let's shift away from the technical. Let's shift closer to our observational relationship. Let's shift into our embodiment of the sun and moon unto life on earth. Whether you practice agriculturally, whether you apply it spiritually, either way, even applying your actions based off of the moon's theme is integral. You never get married during the month of February. It was a death month. You never got married during certain times. There were certain acts and practice that we still associate today, but we associate it off of our cold days. For those of you that practice the Celtic tradition, the Druids calendar is a 5-year calendar. That is also a lunar solar calendar, a beautiful, beautiful system that intricately connects nature into the lunar solar system. Our modern calendar is great just for keeping things mathematically concise. But now it's time to return to the cosmos. It's time to return to the celestial seasons. It's time for all of us to awaken our connection with the stars and to be the conduits to life on Earth. So what does it mean to return to this synodic month? You can abandon your system, but it's going to be hard. So don't abandon the Gregorian calendar because it's all we've ever known. And you can't really set your meetings by a lunar date if nobody else is following along. So here's what I've done to help you. This year, I've made this calendar digital. In the previous few years, when I've produced a lunar solar calendar, it's always been print. Well, I've chosen to take it to digital so you can actually attune it to your calendar, your Google Calendar, whatever. You can synchronize. That will have the lunar month date, the lunar position, as well as today's modern day. So you can have them synchronized together. It's taking modernity into antiquity. But it also means that you have a better system to understand what is occurring within the moon and behind the stars and how it's going to affect you. This is going to give you more power, more empowerment, more greater synchronicity and alignment to even your modern actions, even our day-to-day tasks, by moving with the theme of the moon. It's not just about agriculture. It's about action. Remember, the ancients set their civil, their civic, and their commerce to this, their government to this. Ritualistically, it's going to tune you better because currently, for those of you that are spiritually practicing a sidereal 27-month system off of NASA math, you've disassociated from the moon. I know, I was there too. Breaks my heart. But let my 2+ years of research study serve you. If you're doing this spiritually, tune in to the synodic month. Tune in and start to tune into the actual moon dictated rituals, the timing of everything. Then we get to reclaim our holistic sense of being. Then we get to exist not just as things going through time, but we are time. We are consciousness manifesting so we can recognize ourselves in this thing that we call time. We get to be the stardust that we are made of, to the seasons unto earth, to the illumination of the sun and the reflection of the moon. It's not something we inhabit. It is something that we are. So to all of you, I hope that this podcast has served you, and I will do another one. Next podcast is further on the synodic month and lunar timing, and we'll dive deeper into understanding the qualities and characteristics of the moon and the nuances behind each lunar month. Lots of kisses. Tanti Bachi. You can find more information, retreats. I've got a few coming up in Tuscany on the standing stones to welcome in the equinox in Scotland, magical place, as well as one upcoming in the countryside of France. There are ways that you can do a consultation as always. And I have just now released lunar month custom books based off of your lunar mansion. So your birth moon and a customized book. All of that will be links below. I'll also include the link to the calendation system. The calendation system will begin in January. So it'll be ready in a few months, but I'll go ahead and have that link down there for you as well. Lots of kisses. Ciao, sweets.